Welcome back to part 2 of Grains and Legumes Cooking Basics, where we focus on cooking some pinto beans today and rice 2 ways. So the first way we're going to do is going to be just your average steamed rice, and the second way we're going to do a Spanish style rice, which I think everyone will love. Now, I'm not the expert on making Spanish rice, and I definitely have done it horrible every time, so let's hope I do it right for you guys this time. Let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is start with a cup of sushi rice. Now, we're gonna do this sushi rice because we want something that's a little bit more clumpy. We want something that's a little bit more sticky. I'm gonna show you how this comes out over the stove top. All right, this is probably good. It doesn't have to be exact, but this is about a cup, or this is exactly a cup of rice. Again, sushi rice is a short grain rice. It's a little bit starchy. I'm not gonna wash the starch off of this. I'm gonna actually let this be real sticky. All right, so we got a little pot here. We're just gonna go ahead and put that in there. And we're gonna add some water. For sushi rice, I typically like to do a 2-to-1 ratio, which is 2 parts water for every 1 part rice. Another thing that I've seen that you can do is with your finger, you fill it up to about the first line. Make sure your hands are clean, and you know, I've done that quite a few times and it's never steered me wrong. All right, real simple. I'm not gonna do anything else with this. We're just gonna take this over to the stove, we're gonna simmer it, and we're gonna put a lid on it. Perfect. Our rice is coming to a simmer. What we're gonna do is make sure it stays just at a simmer, nothing higher, and then put a lid on it so that way too much water doesn't evaporate. All right, taking a look at our rice, we can see that there's some eyes starting to form. At this stage, we don't want to disturb the rice. We're gonna let it continue to steam, and we'll check on it in just a few minutes. All right, our rice should be done. Look at that. And see, there's no longer water pulling along the side. You see it's tender and it is sticky. Look at that. Our rice is done. Now you don't want it to go too long because what will end up happening is it'll start to burn on the bottom. I mean, unless you like your rice crunchy, but hey, I don't. All right, let's pull this off. All right, and to finish off our sushi rice, we're just gonna sprinkle a little bit of togarashi over the top. Just a little bit of seasoning. Now you can use a rice wine vinegar to season this, also soy sauce, obviously. But sometimes I like to just eat my rice plain just the way it is. Perfect, now you've mastered some steam rice. All right, here's the ultimate test with our sticky rice, is if we can pick it up with chopsticks. Wow, that's actually really sticky. Let's. Perfect. Awesome. All right, so we mastered steam rice. Next, Spanish rice. And this is a little bit different. There is a little bit more involved. We're gonna be toasting our rice. We're gonna gather a few ingredients together: tomato, garlic, onion, some bouillon. But first, we need to wash our rice, and then we'll head over to the chopping block. I wanted to bring you back over to the sink because I wanted to show you how we rinse our rice. Now, you can use a colander like this with a fine mesh, so that way, there you go. So that way the rice doesn't fall through. Or what I like to do is I'll take a bowl and I'll just rinse it in the bowl. Let me show you how much starch can be in these. You'll see it gets real milky in color. So you can just do that a couple times. And now your water isn't so milky looking. Back to the chopping block here. I'm gonna go off a few of the ingredients there, or all the ingredients that we're working with. First, we have a cup of rice. Then we have grated garlic. I've also grated the tomatoes and the onions. Grating does not make it worse or better. Your eyes will still hurt the same as if you were cutting them up. Just a little anecdote there. About 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then what we have over here is our bouillon. That's gonna be a tomato and chicken based bouillon. And then 2 cups of water. The 2 cups of water is actually for our broth. This is what's gonna be our base. So I'm gonna take that, let that stir up, stir it around, and we'll get our good base. All right, so all that's left to do is to start adding these ingredients into our pan. The first thing we want to do is turn our gas on to medium-high heat. And once that's going, we're going to add our oil. Now, the secret to Spanish rice is actually toasting the rice. So you're going to take your rice, make sure that it's evenly coated in that oil, spread it around. While we're waiting for that to heat up and brown, go ahead and bring all of your ingredients together so that way they're within reach as things start to heat up and brown. Now you can see that it's nice and evenly toasted. The one thing you want to make sure is that you don't start burning. If it starts to get too hot and it's browning too quick, just turn the heat down slightly and you should be fine. Now, and the key to making sure that this is evenly browned, just the way this is to continuously stir. You want to stir so that way everything gets a chance to touch the hot pan. Look at that, and you can smell the toasted flavors on there. So once it's like this, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our onion, our garlic, mix thoroughly. We're going to take our tomato, pretty much a puree at that point. Mix that in as well. Make sure everything is touching everything. And then we're going to take our broth. Okay. Give it one last big stir before we put the lid on it. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with our sushi rice, is we're going to let this come up to a simmer. You don't want it a complete boil. A simmer will do perfectly fine. And I promise you that will come to a simmer, and I'll show you in a little bit when we take the lid back off. All right, be right back. All right, I wanted to show you what I meant by a simmer. You see some bubbles kind of in the center where the flame's at, but it's not a hard running boil, which is nice. So we're gonna keep the lid on this and we're gonna let it go for about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll check up on it at about 10-minute mark and see how it's doing. All right, let's take a look. So we're almost there. We're about 3/4 of the way done. You can see the eyes are starting to form just like the sushi rice. Let's cover this up so we don't have too much liquid or steam escape. Okay, now we're about 20 minutes in. I did take a little chunk out just to see how tender it was, and it's looking pretty good. So at this point, we're done. The only thing that's left to do is just kind of fluff everything up. You want to be careful because if it goes any longer, it is just going to completely burn on the bottom. You can kind of see where it's sticking there. Wow, it's done. Perfect. All right, so here's our Spanish rice. Looks good. Definitely has a good tomato and garlic aroma. Let's just see how it tastes. Very good. Tender, not dry at all, still nice and moist. It's slightly fluffy, but it's not sticky. You can see it's coming apart really well. All this needs now is some beans. Now we're moving on to cooking some beans. We're going to use the pinto beans. This is, again, that workhorse of beans, something that you'll find in most grocery stores, if not every single grocery store that sells beans. Now I'm going to do a little bit of something different with mine. I'm actually going to add guajillo peppers into the mix. Otherwise, for anyone else who's just making beans, by all means, you can just boil these and they'll come out fine. The main ingredients that we'll use today, though, are going to be salt. We're going to use some celery, carrot, and like I said, those guajillo peppers. And that's really just going to give it a little bit more flavor, and the guajillo peppers just add a little bit of spice to it. So let's take this over to the table and I can show you what we're going to do next, which is sort the beans. The main thing you're looking for when sorting beans is just to make sure that no little pebbles or rocks have made it into your beans. Sometimes in the packaging that can happen. And at this time you can also pull out any broken shells or broken beans. All right, so now we have about 3 cups or about 1.5 pounds of beans. And the reason why I know it's about 3 cups and 1.5 pounds of beans is because I actually measured it with a kitchen scale for weight, and then went off the mason jar, which has little counters on it for little measurements, I should say. Hard to see, but along the side you'll see here, right up here, it says 3. And that's cups on here, and then ounces on this side. Much better for using on liquids. All right, getting back to it. All we want to do is just rinse a little bit, make sure that there's no foreign debris in there, make sure that any dirt or dust has been removed. All right, the next thing you want to do is make sure you grab a pot that's going to be large enough to fit all your beans and some water. So we're going to set that here for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and pour my washed beans in the pot. Now we're going to fill these beans up with some water, leaving it about 1 inch, 1.5 inches over. I tend to do a little bit more than 1 inch because what ends up happening is they expand. Let me bring you in a little bit closer so you can see. All right, all we're gonna do now is let it start to simmer. The next thing we wanna do is take some vegetables like our carrot and our celery and just give this a little bit of a rough chop. This is strictly gonna be for flavor, so again, you don't have to do too much with this. Now you could saute these in smaller cuts and cook them with your beans, and these will start to fall apart. Maybe not the carrot so much, but they'll fall apart and give it some really good flavor. And in they go. Now your guajillo peppers can add quite a bit of spice, so I'm not going to use too much, and I'm actually going to get rid of the seeds inside these guys. The seeds, if you want it real spicy, you definitely can keep those in. It'll give it some spice, that's for sure. So the way we actually clean these guajillos up a little bit is we actually cut the stem off, and then I just cut through and remove any of those seeds that might be in there. If a couple make it in, that's okay. It shouldn't be too bad. We're only using these 2 here, That's just gonna give it a little bit of spice with a little bit of flavor, nothing crazy. Take my knife, cut down that part of the spine, and then I'm just gonna empty out the seeds. Perfect, and these will kind of rehydrate inside there, so I'm gonna leave them whole like this so they're easier to pull out. All right, once your beans have come to a hard boil, go ahead and add a tablespoon of salt in there. Give it a good mix. Make sure that salt and those vegetables in there are all mixed about, and this is a good time to see where your water level's at. I think that's gonna be perfect. So we're gonna drop this down to a simmer and put our lid on it. We'll check on that in a little bit. All right, it's been about 3.5 hours. I think it's time to check on the beans. Oh wow, look at that rich colored bean broth. You know what, let's just pull this out. Give this a little try. That's perfect. That is perfect. All right. So after 3 hours, we finally have some tender, delicious beans. And the broth, amazing. This will be perfect for a soup. Or we can add this to our rice, a little bit of cheese in our tortilla, and make a burrito. Why don't we give that a try? I might be able to get used to having a camera woman. How much do you charge?
This is complimentary.
Oh yes, I'll make a burrito. Okay, so what kind of tortilla is that? Yeah, just a whole wheat soft taco tortilla. And then we're just heating it here on the comal just to get it nice and toasty. Oh, look at that bubble. That's perfect. Okay. All right, let's head over to the table. We're gonna make ourselves a little burrito taco. All right, I think a little bit more cheese. All right, let's roll this little thing. Let's see how this came out. Missing one thing. Let's give that one more try. This is really good. What'd you say this was? Homemade?
Avocado salsa?
Avocado. No, that's really good. Cool. Well, a little bonus. We made ourselves a little burrito. Again, thank you everyone who tuned in, who's been watching. And I think what we're going to do is in the next series with the cooking, within our cooking basic series, is we might dabble a little bit into baking. So stick around and make sure that you like and follow, and we'll get some cool stuff rolling. Thanks again, guys.